Hey, this is Kevin Kelly, and you are listening to the Stardom Cast.
Hello guys and welcome to the Stardom Cast, your weekly audio source of all things World Wonder Ring Stardom. I'm your host, Rob Goodwin, and I am joined as ever by the handsome, the debonair gentleman himself, Mr. Matt Turner. Matt, how are you this fine Wednesday?
I'm fantastic, my friend. How are you doing? Everything A-OK over there in the wonderful world that is Rob Goodwin?
Honestly, can't complain. We had a little bit of a family issue earlier on in the week. Turned out to be nothing, which is excellent. So unfortunately, you won't hear my voice on this week's alternate commentary. I apologise for that. But otherwise, Matt, it has been a fairly boring but quiet and nice week. I made soup today, and that might seem like the most boring thing in the world, but for a man who cannot cook, who burns cornflakes, who'd somehow ruin ice, it is a big step in the right direction, my friend. And I tell you what, it was bloody lovely.
Well, congratulations, sir. Congratulations. I guess we better give the forewarning right at hand. Folks, we have a little bit less than 2 hours to do this show. Now, if you're new to the podcast, and we do have new listeners all the time, and we thank you for that and hope you enjoy your stay with us, you may say, Matt, Rob, 2 hours to do a podcast is a long time. Well, we had one show to cover last week and we went over 2 hours. So some of the stuff, we apologize. We're just going to have to speed up. But I think that you guys and gals will have a fun time on the ride that is the Stardom Cast.
I do love the fact that you've said that, because last week we also gave a warning because we only had the 5-star Grand Prix special show in Hiroshima to review last week. And we prefaced the podcast by saying, yeah, this is probably going to be one of the shortest ones, guys. Don't you worry, if you've got things to do, you will bash this out in an hour, it'll be fine. Just under 2 hours later, and it was like, how the hell have we talked for 2 hours on one shit? Honestly, it defies belief sometimes, the ridiculous things we come out with. But it's the patter that the people enjoy, Matt.
Well, you know, we really enjoy Stardom, and we haven't mentioned it in 2 or 3 weeks, so let's mention it. So when you come over next year for Philly Mania, the fact that we're going to have like 4 or 5 days of unlimited time and unlimited alcohol, there's going to be a lot of Stardom chat. There may be a 24-hour straight chat of Stardom chat between me and you, my friend.
Tell us if you want to hear that as a live stream on Patreon. Just me and Matt getting progressively more and more trolleyed as we talk about Stardom and come up with wilder and wilder booking theories. Yeah, why not? We'll stick it on. We'll do it for charity. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, as Matt said, we can't dilly-dally this week because we've got to be gone within 2 hours. That's the self-imposed time limit this week because of my pressing commitments of playing football against people considerably better than me. But before I do that, it would be incredibly rude, Matt, if I didn't ask, how was your weekend, including Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie? And, of course, including your first tag team match in quite a few months, I believe, with Andy Hennig.
Right around a year. Friday was Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie. That was a really fun time. Again, got to hang out with my dad and my best friend Jeff. So that was it was fun. Alice Cooper was great for a guy who's been got to be in his late 60s, early 70s. He absolutely rocked. Nina Strauss was his guitar. I thought she left Alice Cooper, but she was there. And it was funny because I looked over my dad. I said, "Hey, you know what? Me and that really pretty guitar player have in common? He's like, what's that? I go, we were both on Talk is Jericho. Boom. Anyway, I can get myself over. Anyway, and I believe she played Nakamura out to the ring at WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans.
She did indeed.
But that was great. My dad's never seen Rob Zombie. I've seen him about a dozen times, so he absolutely loved that. So that was a good time. And then Saturday was not a good time. Not only was the match absolutely trash, but Rob, as tomorrow we are scheduled to record our alternate commentary episode, so you will see firsthand my swollen and black and blue eye. I take full responsibility for the match being bad. I always will. I don't care if there's 84 people in the match or there's 2 people in the match or if it's a 40-person battle royal and I'm only in there for the first 5 minutes. If I'm in a match, it is bad. I take fully responsibility. So, yeah, that was that. But however, it was at the shining light, the positive of it, Rob Goodwin. You know me, I look at the positive of everything. The shining light and the positive was it was at a comic book convention, which my daughter did cosplay. And not only did Andy Header cosplay for, but he didn't even change out of into his wrestling gear. He cosplayed as the character. It was more of an animation con. And I only know a little bit about anime. My daughter loves anime. I'm mostly the, give me Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, like your meat and potatoes of comic book. So I have no idea who he was. He explained to me who he was and that his finisher is a German suplex. And I was like, oh, we have a finisher where I hit the rolling elbow into the German suplex. He's like, that should be our finish. And I was like, there we go. Book the finish there. But again, the silver lining was that Lily had a really, really good time at the con. So I was really happy about that. But accidents do happen in the ring. I sent you the picture. Actually, what I did is I was smart about this, Rob. And I'm not always smart. So I knew that my eye was pretty well swollen, and they had the doctor come take a look at it, and nothing was broke. And, that was the one good thing. And I was like, well, and as soon as I'm done wrestling, I always check on, make sure everybody's okay. And then I text my wife, let her know that I'm done and that I'm okay. So I had, this is just my tradition. So I have to text her, let her know that my eye got pretty well swollen, pretty well, I took an elbow to the eye. And that I wasn't 100%, but that I would be okay. And I know that she was going to be quite upset. And so what I did is I took a picture of my eye, and before I sent it to her, I sent it to you. I was like, I'll send it to Rob first. It was a good talk. So, and again, the smart thing about this is by the time I got done, cleaned up, and got home, it'd probably be about a little over an hour. So this would give Amber a little bit of time to calm down. So, and rightfully so. She's, I'm 41 years old. My body's all sorts of beat up from pro wrestling. And by no means am I, pity party for Matt Turner. It's the job you get into. And I take full responsibility, and I love every second of it. And I regret absolutely nothing. And I'm going to continue to wrestle until literally my wheels fall off. So, sent her the picture, and she's like, well, as long as nothing's broke, it's really not that bad. You'll probably have a black eye. The swelling's going to go down probably in about an hour. So I said, yeah, that's what the doctor said. I said, it really not in my line of vision. It really doesn't hurt. It's just going to look nasty. So by the time I got home and took a shower, I sat down and I was sitting next to her, and she took a picture of my black and blue eye. And she started sending it to a whole bunch of people, including my parents, my aunts, my uncles, my friends. And pretty much everybody said, and she didn't describe what happened. Pretty much everyone said, it's about time you punched him in the face, Amber. 11 years of marriage. It's about time you punched him in the face. And Rob Goodwin, and to the fine folks of the Stardom cast, the only person that came to my aid was my sweet mother-in-law when she said, leave him alone. If anything, you should kiss it to make it feel better. But everybody else was on her side.
There you go. And just to sort of put a little bow on this, I just want to make 2 observations. The first thing, when we compare weekends, Matt Turner went to go and see 2 greats of the rock industry in Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie, and then goes and wrestles and gets his face bashed into a billion pieces. I made soup, just to give you some indication of the difference in our weekends. Also, you mentioned Alice Cooper's age as being late 60s, 70s. The man is 75.
Whoa, he rocked it. Dude, he absolutely rocked it. I've never seen, and I go to a lot of concerts, Rob, as you know. I've never seen Alice Cooper live before, but he was absolutely fantastic.
This is a man who was born 3 years after World War II, and he's on the stage rocking it. So, fair play to Alice Cooper. I thought that was absolutely baffling. He's been active since 1964. That's incredible. Anyway, sorry, I just thought that was an interesting piece of trivia. Let's move on. Matt Turner. Let's start with our Patreon. What is going on this week?
we have released Julia's 2020 Cinderella tournament win. That is on the Patreon, as well as Arisa Hoshinki defending the World Wonder of Stardom Championship against Jungle Kiona. The alternate commentary is on for alternate commentary. That's on there as well. And then coming up this next week, you will see not only Tam Nakano versus Mina Shirakawa, champion versus champion, title for title, but you will see firsthand my black eye. Not unless some reason by this time tomorrow, the swelling goes down. And I know we're going to be recording it as well, but I believe in the next week or so, we're going to be doing our All Japan commentary, which will be Dory and Terry Funk taking on the Sheik and Abdul the Butcher in what is one of the most wildest and heated matches in the history of All Japan Pro Wrestling. So that is what has been released this past week. That's what's coming up next week. And then we have obviously so much more coming up on our absolutely loaded Patreon feature there, Rob Goodwin.
Indeed. That All Japan commentary will be dropping Sunday morning for our IWG patrons and above, and obviously the Mina versus Tam alternate commentary that'll be dropping in your feeds if you are a high-speed patron and above. The audio will be dropping in your feeds on Monday. As usual, I apologise that the last two have been a little late. This week, unfortunately, there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. And then if you are an IWGP patron or above, the video will be dropping in your feeds at 5 a.m. British Standard Time on Tuesday. I just wanted to take a brief moment just to thank everyone over on patreon.com/the Stardomcast. You are all absolutely tremendous, including our brand new patron, Kolya Demak. I apologize, Kolya, if I have mispronounced that. Please tell me if I've mispronounced it and I'll get it right next week. But thank you to every single one of you that is subscribed over there, whether you are subscribed at the new blood tier of $1 or whether you are one of those crazy people that subscribe to the red belt tier. We massively thank each and every one of you. You are all absolutely awesome. Let's get stuck into some news from the Stardom world then. And the first thing, and perhaps the most important thing that has come out of this week, is that we have our Goddess of Stardom Tag League lineups and the blocks. So what I'll do is I'll read through these teams and we'll sort of have a little bit of discussion moving forward afterwards. So, in the Red Goddess block, we have got Julia and Tekla, Mafia Bella, Hazuki and Koguma, FWC, Sourei and Saki Kashima, Utami Hayashishita and Lady C, the Prominence team of Risa Sera and Kurumi Hiragi, the Club Venus team, sorry, I couldn't remember the faction name then briefly. The Club Venus team of Mina Shirakawa and Waka Tsukiyama, the Uedatai team of Natsuko Tora and Starlight Kid, and then the team of Suzu Suzuki and Mai Sakurai. And then in the Blue Goddess block, we have got Maika and Megan Bain, the Stars team of Maya Iwatani and Hanan, Saya Ida and Hanako, Mariah and Mai Sakurai, a team that was formed out of the Dream Tag Team Festival. We have got Meltier, Tam Nakano and Natsupoi, O2 Line, Azumi and Miyu Amasaki, Momo Watanabe and Ruaka, and Amisori and Yuna Mizumori rounding out the field. So, two things immediately jump to mind, two omissions. The first, of course, is that one half of the Goddess of Stardom tag champions in Sourei Ano is not in the lineup. Natsupoi will be teaming with Tam as Meltier. And secondly, no Mariah May, which I thought was interesting. So, Matt, I'd like, obviously, your take on Sourei Ano not being a part of it. Obviously, we know she's a freelancer. We know that she goes to other companies and does things. We also know that she is part of this New York Joshi promotion that's starting up. So she may have filming commitments over in New York during this time, which is why she's taken a step back from this tournament. And also, you know, is this the end of the run for Mariah May? She debuted in the company in January. There have been all sorts of rumours that she is, you know, AEW or WWE bound. There's many companies that have got their eyes on her, and rightly so. I think she's done an absolutely outstanding job, the Foreign Ace. And, you know, a 9-month tour is nothing to be sniffed at all. And that's if she's leaving. She might be sitting this tournament out, doing some stuff elsewhere and then coming back. We don't know. But Matt, what are your thoughts on those two? What are your thoughts on some of these teams?
I think that with Mariah May not being in here, especially what her and Mina have done really over the last 5 or 6 months, just a fantastic team there. That really short run as the Goddess of Stardom tag champs, regardless of how short it was, they were the tag champs. So I think that this is again, I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. You know, it's part of my charm. I think that this is the reason why she's not on this. I think she is basically telling them that she is either signing with AEW or the WWE. I think that for how much Mariah May loves wrestling and she loves Stardom and loves teaming with Mina, you figured if they would have signed her to like a long-term contract or contract to the end of the year, I think her and Mina would have absolutely destroyed this tournament. Just because of just how well that they've been gelling and getting better each and every outing. So I think this is something that if she wasn't going to commit to another of the, you know, of one of the two biggest companies, whether it be WWE or AEW, this is something that she would definitely want to do. So that would be my guess. Again, I could be wrong. You might be right. Maybe she has an injury or maybe she's just a little burnt out. Maybe wants to take a month or two off. That's a possibility. But my guess is that she's going to be either AEW or WWE bound. And as far as Saori Anou not being in this tournament, that's a possibility too. What you just mentioned, my friend, that she could be in New York filming for that new Joshi promotion. However, the backup we get is Meltier. So, you know, I mentioned last week, like, what do you do with that? Again, they did not go with my suggestion. Stardom, you know, we give you so much gold on this podcast that you really could have went with Natsupoi and Saori Anou in the blue block and then Meltier in the red block, you know. And then somebody did ask me, like, if they are still the tag champs, if Saori Poi, as you call them, they're still the tag champs and Meltier win the tag tournament, I was asked, what do you do from there? And I'm like, the answer is very simple. Give more of your money to Stardom, because the fact that you'll see Saori Poi versus Meltier for the Goddess of Stardom tag belts, I mean, what a world we live in. I mean, you know, again, here's another idea, Stardom, you know, print money. We're literally giving you the code to print money all around the world. One thing is, and we weren't sure how long Sai was going to be out with her injury. My Sai Kamatani, that is, my fingers were crossed that she would have made a big comeback on the Goddess of Stardom tournament with her and Utami, maybe making a run here, depending on what happens with Utami during the 5-star Grand Prix. Obviously, she's not here. I would have much rather to see Utami and Azumi as a team, considering the fact that come October 9th, I believe, they are getting a shot at the Goddess of Stardom tag tournament. But at the same time, Azumi has been teaming with Miyu Amasaki as O2 line. They teamed last year in the tournament and fared pretty well. And the fact that Lady C will be Utami's tag partner means that, fingers crossed, we will get to see the Holy Demon Army finish.
I knew you'd be loving that. I knew you'd be loving that.
Yes, again, I would love, if you were asking me which team would you want, I would much rather Utami and Azumi. However, again, Rob, let's be positive. What's the positive we get out of this? The fact that we may be able to see the Holy Demon Army finish a handful of times in this tournament. And for you folks that have not watched All Japan in the 90s, All Japan in the 90s is my favorite era of wrestling, and my second favorite tag team of all time was Kawada and Taue, the Holy Demon Army, and one of their tag finishes was a backdrop driver and a chokeslam combination, or sometimes they would do the German suplex and chokeslam combination, which we've seen Utami and Lady C do a handful of times over the last year or two in tag matches and multi-person matches. So that's a possibility. That's a possibility. We Wingori, no Wingori in this one. However, again, let's look at the positive of it. I think Mayu's best tag partner, as far as straight up tag partners goes in this version of Stars, is Hanan. You know, as much as I love Hazuki, her and Koguma should be a tag team, and they are in this tournament. I thought Peach Rock last year, her and Momo Kogo were really great as a team, but I think Mayu and Hanan that is probably the second best tag team in Stars, with FWC, Hazuki, and Kagama being the other. And Black Desire, they not broke up Black Desire, but they split them up in this tournament. I kind of wish that they didn't, but it's going to be interesting to see what Momo does with Ruaka and Tora, who they've been pushing to the moon in this year's 5-star, what they do with Starlight Kid. So yeah, there's some interesting teams in here, and some of them are kind of head scratchers. And I know there's been a decent amount of negativity on Twitter or X or whatever it's called this week on some of these teams. First of all, folks, relax. It's Stardom. There's no way that these matches are going to be bad. All these wrestlers are fantastic. So let's just pump the brakes a little bit. And I think that my early prediction, not putting any money on it, to win this tournament is, I think there's a possibility they may go back-to-back on having outsiders win. I think with, and I don't mean Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, I think Risa Sera and Karumi Haragi, I think they're my early pick to win this tournament, just based on the run-in they did at the Dream Tag Festival and how they were kind of built up and look very dominant in that run-in, that I think that might be a possibility where they go, but we shall see come next month.
Yeah, there was I think you put it perfectly where you said there is a couple of head-scratching teams, but don't forget, when New Japan does their World Tag League, they never put the strongest people together, ever. You know, so many years people have been crying for Hiroki Goto and Tomohiro Ishii, and they were never put together, ever. So, you know, it's just one of those things. The one thing that I'm a little bit not confused by, you know, it is what it is, you know, they broke up the New Eras, who are former Goddess of Stardom Tag Team Champions. They broke up Black Desire, who are former Goddess of Stardom Tag Team Champions. They broke up BMI 2000, who were one of the standouts of last year's tournament. They seem to have a lot of ready-made teams, Wingori, as you already mentioned. They broke up a lot of ready-made teams to create, and you know, I know that it will be a case of wanting to create fresh matchups and fresh dynamics, and I think that's the key here. You know, you don't want to see too much of the same of, you know, Tora and Ruaka having the exact same tournament again as they did last year, whereas here we've now got a fresh dynamic in Tora and Starlight Kid having fresh matchups with, you know, other teams, and I think that's probably where they're going with that. Otherwise, you know, we'd have had Utami Hayashishita and Azumi, because they're going for the Goddess of Stardom tag belt on October 9th. It is worth mentioning, of course, that O2 Line have a title shot coming up in New Blood, which we'll be talking about in a moment. I do like your idea, and I'll give you my prediction in a moment. The one big, not negative, the one big sort of thing that I've seen is that they have been building Megan Bayne and Mai Sakurai as this sort of complete odd couple. And I will be perfectly honest, on the undercard of some of these shows, Megan Bayne and Mai Sakurai have been the thing to watch. They are incredibly entertaining. You know, the way that they've grown without Megan Bayne becoming a comedy act, I think has been really, really good. Their chemistry is tremendous, and they seem to be building and building and building, and then they've broken them up, and it's Suzu Suzuki and Mai Sakurai and Micah and Megan Bayne. Now, that's obviously the negative. However, the positive is we get Micah and Megan Bayne. And that...
And Mai Sakurai and Suzu Suzuki, who are just coming off one of the best tag matches of the year. So
exactly. You can't have it always. And I must admit, Micah and Megan Bayne are my early favourites for the tournament.
Ooh.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't see who beats them. Apart from maybe Melty. It is worth noting as well that we don't actually know currently, hopefully someone will be able to tell us, whether Blue Block are going to be fighting against Blue Block, or if Blue Block are going to be against Red Block, which means we see the final twice. We also don't know if there is going to be semi-finals, or if it's just going to be a straight final. So, fingers crossed, it is Blue Goddess Block fighting Blue Goddess Block, Red Goddess Block, and then meeting in a final, just because then we haven't already seen the final when it gets to the final. But otherwise, I think it's quite a solid lineup. I think Mai Sakurai and Hanan, especially after, the tournament Hanan's had in the 5-star, she's done really well. I think her and Mariah May in the Dream Tag Festival were perhaps the most entertaining part of a very, very, very good show. And I think it's nice to see Hanan branch out and do different things. It wouldn't surprise me if Mayu and Hanan do pretty well in this tournament and come top half of the block. But it's going to be interesting, certainly. Let's move on then from the Goddess of Stardom Tag League and look ahead to New Blood 11, which we had a press conference for, as well as the Nagoya show on the 9th of October, which we'll be talking about later on in the show. But the New Blood 11 card reads as follows. Hina versus Kazuna Tanaka versus Hanako. Sexy Dynamite Princess versus Waka Tsukiyama versus Tekla. Lady C versus Ruaka. The latest Passion Injection match, Meisera versus Nene Takahashi. Cosmic Angels membership assessment, Yuna Mizumori versus Tam Nakano. And then we've got 2 title matches at the top of the card. We've got Future of Stardom Championship match, Rina, the champion, taking on Azusa Inaba of Just Tap Out. Of course, she laid down the challenge at the start of the 9th of September Korakuen show. And we'll be talking a little bit about that show later on. And the New Blood Tag Team Championships are on the line in a 3-way with Starlight Kid and Karma, the champions, taking on Wingori and O2 Line. So overall, Matt, another solid New Blood 11 card.
I'm excited for Sexy Dynamite Princess to get the big win here, and then clearly get the big push to beat Roman Reigns for the double titles and be the one to end that reign. I mean, that's where you got to go with it, right? I mean, the writing's on the wall. How do you not see that, correct?
It's only a matter of time, especially as her identity is such a closely guarded secret. She is, for all intents and purposes, the Batman of the Stardom universe. No one truly knows the identity of Sexy Dynamite Princess.
Yeah, not only that, you mentioned the card here. The fact that there is no Mariah May on this show to be found may go to the fact that, like I said before, maybe she's on her way to AEW or WWE. So since she's not on this show at all, hey, let's lead into the gimmick, brother. All joking aside, yeah, it's another solid New Blood card. I'm really looking forward to see what Tam and Yuna, what they're going to do there, because the booking's really interesting because I don't see really Tam dropping an L when she's got the red belt. I mean, it would be cool and make Yuna a bigger deal. Now, unless it goes to a time limit draw or Tam beats her with just seconds left and then says, yeah, you can join. That's a possibility. Maybe that'll put a little better shine on Tam, considering her joining, trying to join Cosmic Angels has not gone the best way. I'm not going to get into it. The biggest Tam fan in the world. I don't like the kind of gimmick they were going with. So maybe it goes that way. Azusa Inaba versus Rina is going to be fantastic, considering the fact that these two, their combined age is 30. It's absolutely insane. And the fact they could absolutely steal the show. And then what I'm assuming is the main event, that 3-way dance with Karma, Starlight Kid versus defending the New Blood tag belts against Wingori and O2 Line. That is going to be an absolute barn burner. So overall, yeah, super solid show. But I think just like the last New Blood, I could be wrong, partner, and if I am, please correct me. I don't think this one's going to be live streamed on YouTube. I think we have to wait a day or two until it goes up on Stardom World, correct?
It's funny you should mention that, because it's like you're reading over my shoulder, Mr. Turner. It was literally my next point. Obviously, Stardom's YouTube channel growing incredibly. I believe they've just hit 800,000 subscribers. And they've taken the New Blood shows off them. Do you like that, or do you think that's a bit strange? Personally, I really enjoyed the fact that the New Blood shows were streamed on YouTube. It was different. It was sort of a gateway into, this is some of what you can see over on Stardom World. It was like just a little bit of a taster for those people who are umming and ahhing about getting into Stardom. And, yes, it is in inverted commas, the future of Stardom. But you look at this card, you have got the World of Stardom champion on there, a former World of Stardom champion in Nanae Takahashi. You've got Starlight Kid and Azumi, two of the best up-and-coming wrestlers, two of the best wrestlers, full stop, in the world. And then you've got people like Hanan, Sairida, and people like that who are on this card as well. It's a good, solid card. I'm slightly disappointed that it appears that the sort of time for them to be on YouTube seems to have passed, especially as they seem to be working towards growing that fan base.
Yeah, you figured. I mean, my pick, or not my pick, what I think what they should do is maybe they should even give a show away, like maybe once every 3 months, like a Cork and Hall show or a KBS Hall show. Just be like, hey, you're looking to get into Stardom. We're close to a million subscribers. And I think if they were to do that, maybe, once every 2 months where, hey, it's a big show, we're going to give it away free on YouTube, either stream it live or as soon as it's over, go back and, put it up on YouTube. That's kind of like, hey, we have this huge following. A lot of people are beating on the doors, asking about Stardom. I know me and you get questions all the time asking certain things about Stardom. I just got into Stardom. I'm trying to get into Stardom. That would be an easy way, because I highly doubt that if anybody watching those shows that will be for free on YouTube, I highly doubt that anybody watching them will say, this is just all right. I think they'll be absolutely blown away. I mean, can you imagine somebody seeing Azumi and Starlight Kid in the ring for the first time? Like, their minds would absolutely melt, and this would be an opportunity to stream it on YouTube because Azumi and Starlight Kid are in the ring at the same time in this match. So, yeah, that's, I think, what they should do. Why they're not doing it, I don't know. Obviously there's smarter people that work for Stardom than me. I'm not going to say you, Rob, because you are a pretty smart fella. But, yeah, that's, it's just kind of weird. It's kind of weird because they did, I think the first, other New Blood Premium, the first like 7 or 8 New Blood shows, they streamed live on YouTube. And looks like we're just going to have to wait a day or two for it to go up on Stardom World. However, though, we have to once again give our props to fine people over at Stardom World, because with the blistering schedule that they have with all these 5-star shows coming out, 24 to 36 hours later, these shows are up on Stardom World, and the production quality has gotten so much better. Everything's crisper, it's clearer, the camera work is better, the crowds are mic'd better. So, yeah, a little upsetting that we're not getting it live on the Stardom World, but we cannot, misstep, or we cannot not put over how fantastic the people at Stardom World are for getting these shows up in the timely manner they are with the quality that we've been getting lately.
Yeah, the turnaround has been significantly improved, and it's all the better for it. So I suppose if we were to sacrifice watching the New Blood shows live on YouTube and it meant we are getting the shows quicker on Stardom World, I'm happy with that sacrifice. We're still going to be seeing New Blood. It'll just take a day or so to watch it live. It's funny you should mention Stardom World, actually, because the last little bit, it's not technically Stardom news, but New Japan announced that there will be, at some point towards the tail end of this year, a brand new New Japan World app, which will be a dedicated app for Android, for iOS. New Japan World is going to be sort of completely redone, rather than at the moment I believe the app is just a sort of directs you to the website. So this is apparently a brand new thing, and it sort of made me think, like, are we maybe, with Bushiroad owning both, could we dare to dream, Matt, of a Stardom World app? Do we dare dream? And if we were to dream just for a moment, what features would you like to see on a Stardom World app?
I would like, the obvious one would be every single live Meltier performance would be, come on. And then the wrestling, of course. The way, if they were just to take the website and literally just convert that into an app to make it a lot easier. You have the translation there, and then obviously the other matches that are missing. There's so many matches that are missing on Stardom World. Even what you and I consider the greatest match in the history of Stardom is from the year-end climax with Mayu and Io. That's not on there. Now you can find it on YouTube, and I have it on every single Mayu and Io and Stardom DVD and Blu-ray that I have. But if they can kind of maybe complete some of those puzzles, like I would love to see EO's entire high-speed run. I would love to see some of those early 5 stars, like a good majority of them. I believe the first Cinderella tournament that Mayu wins is not on there at all. I'm almost positive, because when we were doing the Patreon for a Merry Mayu Christmas, I wanted to put that which was last year during Christmas time, hence Merry Mayu Christmas. I wanted to put that as an option, and I was like, oh, it's nowhere to be found. It's not on here. So I would love to see that. You know what? Dare I say this, Rob? I hope you're sitting down. I would rather see them fill in a lot of the gaps that are missing on Stardom World than every single Meltier live performance. How about that?
My God. I did have sort of this vision of you saying you wanted some sort of step-by-step dance tutorial for the Meltier dance. You know, when you go to like an arcade and you've got those dance mats and you've got to put your foot in time with the arrows. I thought you were going to say something like that. But no,
they've done that on their Twitter. A couple months ago, they had it on their Twitter.
Did they
where they did that? Yeah, I think I even retweeted you, and I think I tagged you in it.
Oh, yes.
He's probably going to ignore this or just no sell it, as you should, sir.
I'll go one step further, Matt. I would much rather Stardom World, and I know that obviously the way TV deals work in Japan is completely different, and the matches and shows that they put out aren't actually property of Stardom. I believe they're property of whatever television station, Samurai TV or whatever it was that are putting out the programming. So they might not actually have the rights to their own stuff in that case. I think that's how it works anyway, which is why we haven't got things like Mayu versus EO from the end of 2016. I would much rather Stardom will be able to put those types of matches on there than have an app or something like that. I think that would be so much better, because I think if you look at Stardom World, I think they've got one show from 2014. Is it 2014 they've only got one show from? I don't know off the top of my head. There's one year where they've got like one or maybe two shows. So if they could fill some of those gaps, it would be phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Again, I don't know how difficult that would be or how costly that would be. And again, you said it before, Matt, wiser people than us work at Stardom. So that would be my dream if we were dare to dream. Let's move on then to the 3 shows that we are going to be reviewing. We are 2 nights deeper into the 5-star Grand Prix, and then of course on the 10th, a mere 3 days ago, we had the Stardom Dream Tag Festival from Yokohama Budokan, which was an incredible amount of fun. I can't wait to talk to you about that. But first, we need to go all the way back to the 2nd of September. If you remember on last week's episode, we did say it dropped at a time when neither me or Matt could actually watch it in time to record. So we said that we'd tag it on to this episode. Obviously, I know that because this was over 7 days ago, we've actually already talked about results and things that have happened in relation to the shows that we have watched. So I know that some of this won't come as a surprise to you. So we'll whip through it as quickly as we can. But this was night 13 of the 5-star Grand Prix from Fukuyama Industrial Exchange Center, Big Rose, Fukuyama, Hiroshima, in front of 408 people. The results are as follows. In singles action, Starlight Kid defeated Tekla with the Black Tiger Leg Killer in 8 minutes and 28 seconds. In a tag team match, the Cosmic Angels team of Tam Nakano and Yuna Mizumori defeated the Queen's Quest team of Lady C and Miya Wamasaki, with Tam pinning Lady C with the Violet Shooting in 5 minutes and 3 seconds. In a 6-woman tag match, we then saw the Odd Bod team of Maika Meisera and Suzu Suzuki defeating the even more Odd Bod team of Hanako, Megan Bain and Momo Kogo, with Maika pinning Momo Kogo with the Sazanka. In a tag match, we then had the God's Eye team of Konami and Sourei defeating the God's Eye team of Mirai and Saki Kashima in 10 minutes and 10 seconds. Konami submitting Saki with the Triangle Lancer. Don't forget, that was the match that set up our our Mariah and Konami white belt match in Hiroshima. And then we get some 5-star matches. Utami Hayashishita moves to 6 points, defeating Mariah May, who stays on 6 points, pinning her with the torture rack bomb in 9 minutes and 41 seconds. Also in blue block, and I could just see this result coming, Azumi moves to 6 points, defeating Mina Shirakawa, who stays on 6 points in 10 minutes and 53 seconds with the Azumi Sushi. In the semi-main event, blue block again, Julia moves to 7 points, defeating Momo Watanabe, who stays on 6 points in 10 minutes and 28 seconds with the Northern Lights bomb. And then in your main event, in the red block, Mayu Iwatani moves to 7 points, defeating the impressive Sourei, who stays on 4 points in 10 minutes and 32 seconds with a Hurricane Rana. Matt, what did you think of this show?
The undercard matches were all pretty solid. The fact that we had a one-on-one Starlight Kid versus Tekla match was a nice little treat. But again, for the sake of time, let's go into the meat and potatoes of this show. Let's talk about these matches from the 5-star Grand Prix. We obviously start, as you said, sir, in the Blue Stars block with one Mariah May taking on one Utami Hayashishita. This was a good match. Went under 10 minutes. I wish it would have got another minute or two for them to maybe flush out a little bit of a better story. But not that the story was bad. By all means, these two absolutely crush it. This was a really great match. It was Mariah May really brought the chops and the kicks and the forearms to the former World of Stardom champion. But you know that when you hit Utami as hard as you do early on in the match, that you're going to get it back. So Utami was able to counter with a lot of clotheslines, hit a huge sliding lariat, and then started to work on Mariah May's neck to set up for the torture rack bomb. But Mariah May escapes the torture rack bomb. We get a really nice false finish that a lot of people bid on, was the Once Upon a Time roll-up that Mariah May used earlier on in the tournament to pin Momo Watanabe. Eventually, Utami is able to kick out. She comes back with the air raid crash and the torture rack bomb combination win for the pin. And I gave that match 4 stars. We go on to the Blue Stars block. I absolutely love this match with Azumi and Mina Shirakawa. I've noticed Azumi entering this tournament, Rob. She's wrestling more like of a counter wrestler. Like she's baiting her opponents into do something just to show her ring IQ. Again, she's like 21, 22 years old, but she's been wrestling for like 14 years. Something crazy like that. But like just show her ring. Like we saw it in their Cork and Hall match, main event against Utami, where like she was baiting her fellow Queen's Quest stablemate into doing some things only to be able to hit those ridiculous Canadian destroyers. And it's very much like this with Mina. So Azumi tries high speed early on to bait Mina into going for the leg. And it's just Azumi's able to counter all the leg work. Eventually, Mina does get to the leg, but it's almost like Azumi wanted her to get to the leg because she picks her up for the the electric chair, dragging through her leg whip, and then Azumi's able to counter, and that's how she's able to get the advantage back. And then Azumi, her head kicks, especially those low head kicks, are so underrated. She's such a great striker. Really great back and forth submissions with the figure 4 and the La Mystica into the armbar. And then there's one point again where Mina is again going to the leg, and Azumi, again, maybe this is just me watching this, she baits Mina into going for the leg. She throws the low drop kick. And how does Azumi counter the low drop kick? By jumping up and double stomping Mina Shirakawa on the way down. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I know a lot of people that I talked to, they did not like this match as much as I did. So they're like, well, why is Azumi a high-speed wrestler letting Mina going to the leg? I'm like, I see this match completely different. I see Azumi, again, being a counter wrestler, baiting Mina into going for the leg. At this point, the crowd is really, really hot. Great selling from both Mina and Azumi on the different body parts. Again, Mina, figure 4 on Azumi's leg, the Azumi Sushi, or the La Mystica going into the numero uno onto Mina's arm. So you have the back and forth. And again, they're both baby faces, so the crowd's into both of them. They just want to see, just like me, a good match. And the crowd is really, really hot. Then we eventually see Azumi, like I said, hitting that crazy double stomp, going to the Azumi Sushi for a 2 count, and then she goes for the La Mystica, but then the La Mystica is countered. Mina's able to stack the La Mystica for a 2 count. Then she figures, well, it makes sense. I have her down here. So then she rolls up Azumi and the Glamorous Collection Mina to try to get the win. But you don't roll up Azumi. That's what, again, it's what she wants you to do. Because, okay, now I'm down here. So then she gets the double Azumi Sushi for the 3 count. 10 minutes, 53 seconds, 4.5 stars. Rob, you mentioned before you did not get a chance to see the show yet, correct?
No, I haven't had a chance to watch this show yet.
Definitely go out of your way. I mean, again, the whole show is really good. All the 5-star matches are good. But if you're only going to watch 2 matches from this show, Azumi versus Mina, again, for the reasons I just said, just the brilliance and the genius that is Azumi. And this match we're going to talk about. With all due respect to Mayu versus Mai Sakurai, they absolutely crushed it. To me, this should have been the main event. You have Julia, Momo Watanabe. You remember how violent their match was last year at last year's 5-star. This one was just as violent, just as good, if not better. It starts out with, of course, Momo Watanabe. What group is she with, Rob?
A Ueda Tai.
And what does a Ueda Tai got to do? They got a Ueda Tai. They got to jump
Ueda Tai's got a Ueda Tai, my man. Always.
I love it. We got to get it. We get you a shirt that says a Ueda Tai's got a Ueda Tai. So we get a crazy brawl to start the match. And I found out maybe about a day or two after I watched this match that it's heavily rumored that Julia's wrestling these matches with a bruised tailbone. And considering how good this match was and how good her match was in Cork and Hall and how good her match was at the Dream Tag Festival, she's wrestling with a bruised tailbone. That just shows you how tough she is and how awesome she is.
I was going to ask this because in the Micah match at Cork and Hall, every time she hit the mat, you could see, and there's a big difference between being able to sell beautifully and it just being real. And you could tell, and I hadn't seen anything to say she was working hurt, but you could tell during that match especially that she was struggling a little bit. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, and considering the fact that the 3 Julia matches we're going to talk about were all fantastic, this was my favorite one of the show. So, of course, we get a crazy brawl, which the ref gets distracted, which, again, if Ueda Tai's going to Ueda Tai, they're going to cheat. The ref has to get distracted. So, of course, we get a crazy Momo Watanabe bat shot. She tries to go to use it again, but then Julia picks up one of the signs that basically tells you what section you're in. And then basically we almost have like a Star Wars, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, fight off with this. Eventually, Julia gets the bat. And here's the one part of the match I kind of dislike, but I understand. Julia gets the bat, and she gets ready to hit Momo with it. And then in my head, Rob, you've done this podcast with me for about 2 years now. You know what I'm going to say. I've got no problem if you're going to cheat or use a weapon. Don't do it in front of the ref. Now, granted, they're in about the 6th row. And I'm like, I hope just the ref is still distracted by the 84 members of Ueda Tai. And then guess who appears right on my screen watching everything? The referee, right there. So Julia decides to whipping poor Momo. I can't say poor Momo Watanabe. She brought the bat in. This is her doing, right? She just beats the crap out of Momo with this bat right in front of the referee. So obviously the one part's like, it should be a DQ. At the other point, it's like, it's the co-main event. It's Julia versus Momo. It's the fight's already into the crowd. Give it a little bit of leeway. So it's like, yeah, I kind of get that. I know there's a lot of old school people that I talk to on the Twitterverse and the Xverse and Facebook and whatnot. Like, shouldn't that have been a disqualification? I'm like, I get it. I'm as old school comes, but at the same time, it would have totally killed the crowd if you would have thrown this one out 4 minutes in. So it's like, I get it. But sometimes you kind of got to bend the rules here a little bit. So, and I'm glad that I believe it was Daichi was the referee, that they let this one go a little bit, because then it just got even more violent without weapons. So Momo Watanabe comes in and she just kicks the crap out of poor Julia, hits that really crazy low corner drop kick that she does, the tree roll drop kick, punch Julia, and then Julia's trying to sell her way to the ropes. So what does Momo do? He punts her. That sends Julia right out of the ring. So they go back to the floor. Julia is able to lock in the Black Widow submission onto the floor, which then Momo Watanabe is able to reverse right into a B driver onto the floor, which was disgusting. Momo hits a second rope Samato, top rope Samato, bastard driver. What a combination that is for 2 count. Very much the combinations that we see her using back in 2018 during that Wonder Stardom Championship run. Julia is able to block a kick, hits the wrist clutch suplex, to create a little separation. Julia goes for the G trigger. Momo blocks that, and she transitions the G trigger into the tequila sunrise. She goes for the peach sunrise. Julia is able to roll Momo up into the 2 count. Julia hits that throat punch. Again, I guess it's an open hand, as she always says when she punches poor Tam in the face. She does the throat punch into the G trigger, and then a Falcon Arrow for 2. Then Julia is able to hit a backdrop driver and then plants Momo Watanabe into the middle of the mat in about 10 minutes, 30 seconds with the Northern Lights bomb. My favorite match of the show, 4 3/4 stars. And one of my favorite matches of this tournament, Momo Watanabe, when you talk about the MVPs of this tournament, as we're just about 3 weeks away from the finish of the tournament, you know, Sherry, Mayu's one that comes up, Hazuki comes up, Natsupoi's one that comes up. You have to look at Momo Watanabe, who's having an unbelievable tournament, just really harkening back to her Queen's Quest days. So excellent stuff. We move on to the main event, Mayu Iwatani versus Ami Sourei. We always mention, Rob, going into these tournaments when we do our previews, which one of these, for lack of a better term, undercard wrestlers is really going to shine out in this tournament. And we pegged Mariah May and Hanan, and of course they're having great tournaments. But Ami Sourei is really ramping it up here. You know, with her match with Hazuki and her match with Mayu here, this was a really, really good match with Ami Sourei just dominating Mayu early on in the match, but Mayu really making her work for it. Mayu was able to come back with some strikes and some super kicks. But then Ami Sourei just coming back with really working on Mayu's back, locking in that high angle Boston Crab, locking in the torture rack. We see some huge lariats back and forth, and then planting Mayu with this huge Blue Thunder Bomb. If you like watching Mayu take crazy bumps, this Blue Thunder Bomb that Ami Sourei hits poor Mayu with, thought she was going to put her through the mat. Really cool counter to the Like a Thunderbolt. Ami goes for the Like a Thunderbolt. Mayu's able to slip behind her, hits a really big super kick to the back of Ami Sorei's head. Ami does a perfect sell job, basically doing a 180 sell right into the crucifix bomb from Mayu. Mayu then lands another huge kick. She goes for the moonsault, but she misses. Ami hits a huge corkscrew suplex for 2 count. If you remember when Ami Sourei first came into Stardom, that was her finisher. Then she goes for the Like a Thunderbolt again for the second time. Mayu's able to escape and hit the Hurricanrana pin attempt for a 3 count. Again, a solid match. I had it at 4 stars, but to try to go after Julian Momo and Azumi versus Mina, I thought maybe would have been better off if they had Julia versus Momo as the main event. But at the same time, I'll never sneeze at putting Mayu Iwatani in the main event. Again, to the shock of nobody, another solid card for Stardom and another fantastic 4 5-star matches.
It's funny you should talk about Momo Watanabe as having an underrated tournament, and I completely agree. I think she's been fantastic in this tournament. She seems to have found a groove that she not necessarily lost, but seemed to be searching for over the past couple of months, and she certainly seems to have found it during this tournament. Just keeps cracking out really, really good matches. Her match with Micah was really good as well, if you haven't already checked that out. But for me, Ami Sourei's having a really good tournament. She was someone we highlighted during the preview show as someone who was effectively there to eat pinfalls. We didn't really see who, if anyone, she was going to beat. And actually, she's doing herself proud, really, with the matches that she's putting on. She's hanging with the likes of Mayu Iwatani, with Hazuki, with Sourei, people like that. She is able to hang. She is able to be on that level and not feel like she's being carried to a match. You know, considering she only made a debut like 3 years ago, she's already a Goddess of Stardom champion, or former. She's already a former Future of Stardom champion. And I think here we are seeing a real progression throughout that tournament. So yes, she might finish this tournament with 4 points, which I think is what she's on at the moment. But ultimately, it's not about the points that you finish on. It's about how well you do in ring. And I think Ami Sourei is doing what Hanan did last year. And in my opinion, she's certainly one of the MVPs of the tournament, and certainly in the running for most underrated person in the tournament. Let's move on then to the next night of the 5-star in night 15. So we are moving to Saturday, the 9th of September 2023 in Korakuen Hall in Tokyo in front of 1,327 people. These two attendances from Korakuen and from the Yokohama Budokan for the Dream Tag Festival will certainly help to sort of ease the poor number for the 5-star special in Hiroshima show, because both numbers were very, very pleasing, especially that Dream Tag Festival number, where they drew over 1,400 people, which we'll talk about in a moment, with no title matches and no singles matches. I think that goes to show just how well they did. But in terms of this Korakuen Hall show, night 15 of the tournament, the results are as follows. We opened with a tag team match, Hanako and Miyu Amasaki defeating the Queen's Quest team of Hina and Lady C, with Miyu Amasaki winning in 6 minutes and 54 seconds with her modified crucifix pin, which is called, now, are you ready? It is called the Amano Hashidate. No, let me try that again. The Amano Hashidate. No, try again. Amano Hashidate.
God bless you.
Thank you. Honestly, I read it and I was like, I'm going to have to say that on the bloody podcast now. I swear they do it on purpose just because they know I'm going to butcher it. But that's what it is, her modified pin, and it's really cool. Tag team match followed. Megan Bayne and Mai Sakurai, possibly the most entertaining team on the undercard, defeated the Club Venus team of Mariah May and Waka Tsukiyama, with Megan Bayne pinning Waka in 8 minutes and 26 seconds with the F5. The God's Eye team then of Saki, Kashima and Sourei defeated the Cosmic Angels team of Natsupoi and Yuna Mizumori, with Saki getting the pinfall over Yuna with the Kish Kasai in 8 minutes and 28 seconds. We had a 6-woman tag team match following that. The Stars team of Mai Iwatani, Koguma and Momo Kogo defeating the Uedatai team of Fukigen Death, Natsuko Tora and Rina, with Mai Iwatani submitting Rina in 7 minutes and 49 seconds with the modified Dragon Sleeper. We then move on to our 4 5-star matches. In Blue Block, Saori Ano moves to 8 points, defeating Mirai, who stays on 6 points in 12 minutes and 42 seconds with Pottering. We then had in Red Block, Hazuki moving to 6 points and keeping her tournament hopes alive, defeating Starlight Kid, who stays on 2 points with the Hazuki Strahl in 10 minutes and 19 seconds. We move then to another Red Block match, Suzu Suzuki keeping her own tournament alive by defeating Tam Nakano, who stays on 7 points with the German suplex in 13 minutes and 24 seconds. And then in your main event, Julia moves to 9 points, defeating Maika, who stays on 5 points in 12 minutes and 12 seconds with the Northern Lights Bomb. Before we talk about these 5-star matches then, Matt, what would you like to talk about in regards to the undercard?
The undercard was solid. Again, just for the sake of time, if there is something I want to talk about the undercard is how about that F5 to poor Waka? If I was in the front row of Korakuen Hall, I thought that Megan Bayne was tossing her into the front row because she glided. She reminded me of Princess Peach in Super Mario Brothers 2, where she does the glide. I was like, oh geez, poor Waka. But yeah, the undercard was pretty solid. Is there anything from the undercard that you really enjoyed, Rob Goodwin?
I must admit, I know that we've spoken about it a couple of times. Megan Bayne, Mai Sakurai versus Mariah May and Waka Tsukiyama is my match of the show that wasn't a 5-star match. If you're going to go out your way to watch the undercard, I'd watch that. I'd watch that match. Just the chemistry between Mariah and Waka, but also the chemistry between Mariah and Megan Bayne, the chemistry between Megan and Mai Sakurai, as I've already mentioned on this podcast, is phenomenal. And also, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Hanako, who I think is really, really beginning to flourish. I know that obviously at the moment she is the only rookie on the roster, as we started with 3. We now have 1 because of Aya Sakura's injury, and the third rookie who was supposed to be fighting Hazuki, but rather than fight Hazuki, has been injured. I can't even remember her name, which is dreadful of me. But I think as the sole rookie on the roster, she is really, really come on leaps and bounds. She's really, really, really impressed me. But overall, yeah, let's we're here for the 5-star matches, and I think it's only fair that we start with what is one of my matches of the tournament. I thoroughly enjoyed Sourei Ano and Mariah. The reversals that they were able to throw at each other, the pace they wrestled at, the way that Sourei was able to manipulate everything that Mariah did into these weird and wonderful submissions, and the way that Mariah played to it as well. I thought these two had seamless chemistry, and that pottering move that Sourei Ano wins with is just beautiful, and the way that she ducks under the lariat, locks it in, and gets the win, absolutely perfect. I actually gave this 4.5 stars. I loved this match, and considering it goes 12 minutes, it is a thoroughly enjoyable watch, Matt.
Rob, one of the very few times that you ranked a match higher than me, I too loved it as well. I actually had it 4.25 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it as well. And let's talk about the finish. Now, obviously, we watch every Mariah match. One, we do a Stardom Cast podcast. Not sure if you're aware. But and obviously, because we absolutely love, she's a fantastic wrestler. But how we've noticed now, Mariah's always been throwing lariats, but how the psychology, where she puts them in the match, and just the fierce nature she throws these lariats have amped up over the last 3 or 4 months, especially in this tournament. You know, she beats Julia with a huge lariat into a pinning combination. She beat Konami on last week's show, the 5-star special, with a huge
Thunderous.
It was thunderous. Like, even Stan Hansen was like, "Damn, kid, it's a work." But calm down, kid. But so the psychology of the finish, and I'm gonna, how I call my matches, I do the finish and work backwards. That's how I'm gonna review this match. Is Mariah with the lariats, and then she goes to throw that huge thunderous lariat where she's gonna put a little bit more stank on it. If I'm gonna steal a phrase from good old JR, put a little more stank on that lariat. And obviously, Sourei Ano has it scouted, and she not only ducks under it, but is able to use Mariah's momentum to go into that pottering, or is what I call the backslide from heaven, for the 3 count. I thought the finish was very well done, and very much like the Tam Suzuki match, where we have the champion on the L. Is it just me, Rob, or did we get 2 title matches set up on this show? Because it's very well
100%.
And who's going to say no to Suzu versus Tam for the red belt, and Sourei versus Mariah for the white belt? Considering the fact that Mariah was like, "Okay, you beat me," it's almost like she gave the challenge to Sourei. It was like, I was inches away. If I would have hit that lariat, no doubt about it, match was over. I've beaten Julia, I've beaten Konami, I've beaten all these people with this crazy lariat. If I would have hit it, it would have been over. It's literally the point where she goes up to Sourei and shows the belt, and Sourei basically just touches it. So it's like, okay, they wouldn't have done that in Korakuen Hall with the cameras on if it wasn't lead to somewhere. So considering the fact that we have Mariah coming off the 5-star, defending against Momo Watanabe and Sourei, I mean, fantastic. Yes, again, Stardom, take my money. You already have it. But the 1 counter, and I saw this coming a mile away, as did everybody else, and I got no problem with that, is when Sourei went for the Tom's Tundra. I think I got that right. The Tom's Tundra. She goes for it. Tom Tundra. She goes for it. And you know it's only about 7 or 8 minutes into the match, and the match is going to go a little bit longer because that's pretty much her go-to finish. It's going to get countered. And what's the easiest counter for Mariah? Well, you're pulling yourself into me. I'm just going to put my arm out and take your head off.
Brilliant.
We saw Utami do it the same counter earlier on in the tournament, but this one just had a little bit more violence to it. Plus, it's Korakuen Hall. And can we say how amazing Korakuen Hall has been for these Stardom shows over the last handful of months since they've been allowed for cheering? Like, it's literally their home base is Korakuen Hall. They were so hot for all of these matches, especially these final 5-star matches, which just adds to the atmosphere of the match. It makes the match better when you have a crowd invested like that. So she hits that just brutal clothesline, and the crowd was like, "Oh, geez." Like, that was just thunderous. Of course, and then early on the match, they're exchanging German suplexes back and forth. Mariah hits that hammerlock overhead belly-to-belly suplex, the one that she almost killed poor Konami with on this one. And that takes a lot of strength, from your obliques and your legs, and the way that Mariah's able to hit it and then to build towards her arm work on the mats with Sourei. I thought the match was great. I thought Sourei using that beautiful step-up enziguri as almost like a counter move. Not only does she do it here, but she does it in a lot of her matches to get through some of the forearms and some of the strikes to kind of create a little separation, from Mariah, who's a fantastic submission wrestler. Yeah, everything about this match was great. They held just a little bit back, and I think the reason why is because we're going to get this match run back somewhere closer to 20 minutes for that Wonder Stardom Championship. But yes, my friend, I agree with you. Again, 4.25 stars. Fantastic match and a fantastic way to start these 5-star matches in the legendary Korakuen Hall.
I think it helps as well that Sourei Anou she's made of elastic. She's made of rubber. She's in the Mayu Iwatani mold of being able to sell these ridiculous power moves because she is so bendy. The one thing for me is Mariah's had a sort of stop-start tournament. Just as she's building that head of steam, she went obviously 0-2 at the start of the tournament, and then she won 3 on the bounce, and now she's lost again. I would argue that this is probably her best match of the tournament, at least in my eyes anyway. And obviously, if you come into a tournament as a champion, you wrestle in a very different way because whereas a loss, if you're not a champion, just sort of derails your momentum in the tournament. Here, every loss is a potential challenge, which means that Mariah, so far, she's already having to face, technically, Sourei Anou, Mina Shirakawa, and who did she lose to on the opening night? Was it Momo?
Momo.
So already she has got 3 challenges, and you do wonder how much of a mental game that does play when it comes to tournament wrestling. But overall, like I say, absolutely tremendous wrestling. Sourei Anou just keeps her tournament hopes alive. It would take a miracle for her to win the tournament, but she is not mathematically eliminated yet. And we will go through where we stand in terms of block standings very shortly.
Rob, real quick before we go to the next match, I just want to say that I appreciate how much you understand the psychology of going into these tournaments is different when you are a champion. So bravo, sir. I just want to put you over. So yes, when you are a champion, especially a singles champion in this tournament, your psychology of the match and the importance of the match is different and better. So thank you for pointing that out, my friend. I appreciate you.
You're more than welcome, because obviously, as we know, I have a lot of experience of wrestling, both as a champion and as a challenger, he says sarcastically. Let's move on then to Hazuki and Starlight Kid. And I saw quite a few people on the old Twitter talking about how, it started slowly with the crowd brawl, and then, we went to a limb match. However, I thoroughly enjoyed this match. I thought this was great. I thought Starlight Kid's work on the leg, and then realizing that she hadn't quite done enough to derail Hazuki, and then desperately trying to claw back the momentum, but it was too late. Finally, at the end, it looks like she might be able to pull off the victory by locking in the Black Tiger leg killer, and that beautiful moment with Hazuki just inches away from the ropes, unmoving with her arm outstretched. I thought that was great. Hazuki's selling in this match I thought was fantastic. The way she ran in to do that face wash kick and was basically just with every step holding her leg, beautifully done. And the fact that she won the Hazuki Strahl, I thought that was perfect. She was getting worked over by Starlight Kid, and I think it would have taken away from some of the limb work that Starlight Kid did if then Hazuki just popped up and beat her with a vertical drop brainbuster. It worked really well that it was just a quick roll-up as Starlight Kid was in charge of the match. Worked really well. The psychology of the match was sound. Also, can we talk about how over Hazuki is? Like, you mentioned the Korakuen crowd, Matt, but they were so loud for Hazuki during this match, and I'm hoping beyond hope, because the Hazuki train keeps on a-rolling. Obviously, she needs to win every single match, including that pivotal match against Natsukatora on the final night. But hopefully, Hatman was there. Hatman heard just how over Hazuki is. We're all on the Hazuki train. She's going to win the 5-star. This is going to age really poorly if this comes out after another 5-star night she's lost. But doesn't matter. overall, I thought these two had a really, really, really good chemistry. And I think it was helped by the fact that Starlight Kid was wrestling with just a little bit more anger and a little bit more edge. Because ultimately, we talked about this a little bit last week, Starlight Kid is sort of floundering at the moment. You know, a lot of people saw her as a potential spoiler in this block. Not only a potential spoiler, but someone to challenge for the block. Not only that, she was one of the first eliminated. She still sits on 2 points, technically 4 now because of the win over Saya Kamatani, the forfeit win. And she was out, like I say, relatively early in the tournament, if not the first one out of the tournament, in red block. And, you know, that final night match against Mayu Iwatani suddenly has considerably less meaning. So here, perhaps there was a little bit of that frustration, a little bit of the whole, do you know what, I need to not only put my tournament back on track and sort of finish strongly, I need to put my year back on track, because I would argue this is the stickiest patch Starlight Kid has seen since she turned to a weather time at.
You have to wonder, though, how much of the booking had to be rebooked with Saya Kamatani getting injured. You know, I think we all pegged that Mayu and Starlight Kid would have some sort of implication in that final night going into the final. With Saya getting injured, they had to rebook everything. So maybe it was just a case of it's like, sorry, like Starlight Kid, we love you, you're fantastic, but the only way that this tournament makes sense and we can get to where we get to is she has to eat a whole bunch of L's. Again, I don't know. I don't know, but yeah, I'm going to back up what you said, my friend. I know there were a lot of people on the Twitterverse, very much like Mina and Azumi, that didn't like the match for certain reasons. And they said the same thing with Starlight Kid and Hazuki. And maybe it's just me being me, but you watched a completely different match than I did, because the psychology of this match, again, for me, was Starlight Kid. Again, Oedo Time's got Oedo Time, right? She jumps to Hazuki. At least Julia got her entrance, right? We got to hear her theme music, where it's like, you hear Starlight Kid's theme, and you're like, what's going on? And they just start fighting. I was like, we're not even wasting any time. We're not wasting time with themes. Maybe they forgot Hazuki's the CD into the CD player of her theme. I don't know. I've wrestled a long time. That's happened. But so they just start with a crazy brawl, and then so yeah, you see Starlight Kid. She's angry. I'm out of this tournament. I was so close to winning the Wonder Stardom Championship in the summer of last year. I can't believe, again, the frustrations are showing from Starlight Kid, that she just starts beating up Hazuki before even the entrance happens. So they must be fighting somewhere behind Cork and Hall. And again, a lot of people are like, I don't understand how it goes from Wild Brawl to Limerick. Okay, I'm going to lay this out really, really easy for you. Starlight Kid jumps Hazuki. They start fighting all over Cork and Hall. They get to where the fans' entranceway is. And every time that I see that fan entranceway, I automatically think of Mayu and Io doing the moonsaults off that crossway, which is still crazy. So it's like, they get into there, and again, Hazuki has the jump, so she's beating on Hazuki. The problem with beating on Hazuki is you're beating on Hazuki. So eventually Hazuki goes full Hazuki mode right by where Mayu and Io have done those dives and starts laying into Starlight Kid, where the psychology is, okay, I can't brawl with Hazuki anymore because I will die, right? That's pretty much it. Hazuki is going to take my head off. So what does she do? She goes to Hazuki's leg. And there's a part where she's locking in the Black Tiger leg crusher. And somebody sent me the picture. I think it was somebody that was actually at the show, where Hazuki's like hanging in between like the 10th row and the 9th row. On the other side is Jun Kasai holding like a baby, like watching the match. I thought that was so cool. Like, I was like, wow, Jun Kasai's just taking this in. So that's where it's like, okay, if you're Starlight Kid, my psychology has to change. I can't go at Hazuki with a brawl mode because I will lose. I will get knocked out. I will not even make it back to the ring because it's Hazuki. My friend, as usual, you are 100% right. Starlight Kid goes in there and she starts to do the boot scrapes to Hazuki. I'm like, you are going to pay for this, young Starlight Kid. She does Hazuki's own boot scrapes, even to the point where she gets the crowd involved. And you know it's going to turn out bad. Eventually, Hazuki changes the tide. And when she does the boot scrapes, she hobbles the entire time. Hits the boot scrape, goes back to selling of the knee. Literally to the point where it's just like, this company has so many great sellers that we don't even talk about. You know, we talk about the Mayus and the Utamis, but like, let's talk about how great of a seller, like Saya Kamatani and Hazuki, who's a really good, underrated seller. who brought her selling to like Ricky Morton level in this match, to the point where this crowd, again, partner, you said it perfectly, was so into Hazuki because of the selling, because she got jumped, because Starlight Kid was trying to get the early advantage, and they want to see Hazuki succeed, and they want her to go far in this tournament. They want her maybe even make it to the finals, which I know my wife wants her to make it to the finals and win because she has her picked to win the whole tournament, and we will get into the shocking point exchange that happened on these two shows, my friend, in a moment. But yeah, it just ramps up the violence, the selling, the psychology back and forth. And I thought, Hazuki goes for the brain buster. She finally has Starlight Kid down, goes for the brain buster, but can't get her up all the way. Why? Because of the damage done to the knee. Starlight Kid's able to slip out. She goes for the Momo latch. However, Hazuki's able to dodge the Momo latch. We do see Starlight Kid hitting back-to-back. I've never seen this. She does that cross-leg Northern Light suplex, but she does them back-to-back. She hits 2 in a row, and then she hits the twisting 180-degree splash, but she does it to Hazuki's leg. And when Starlight Kid hits the bump, you hear the bump echo in Korakuen Hall, which must have great acoustics, because you hear that bump, and then Hazuki does like a mini sit-up and grabs her leg, and you could just see the facial expression on her. Perfect sell, perfect point of the match. Starlight Kid goes back to the leg crusher submission, and the fact that they took their time and they milked it. They could have easily gotten to the finish, but they milked it right to the way they had the crowd at the absolute peak for this match. Eventually, Hazuki's able to get out. They exchange roll-up back and forth, which Hazuki eventually gets on top, gets wrist control of Starlight Kid. The Hazuki Strap for 3. Again, I must have seen this match different than a lot of the people that were negative on this, and I'm sorry that you were, because I love the psychology. I love the storytelling. I love the never say die attitude of Hazuki, who this was a must-win situation for her and was able to pull out this win. 4.5 stars, Rob. Love this match.
Yeah, I gave it 4 1/4. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Like you said, I can see why some people might be a little bit more reticent to actually enjoy the match, or might see holes in it. That's fair enough. You are entitled to like what you like. Personally, I loved it, and the more chance we get to see Hazuki sell, I'm intrigued, because we've seen her in these big matches, and I want to continue to see her grow in this big match style, proving that she can wear one of those big singles belts. Ultimately, for Starlight Kid, yes, it has been certainly a sticky patch, but perhaps next year we'll see Starlight Kid sort of progressing towards that sort of top of the block and a genuine chance of making it to the final, because she is a phenomenal wrestler. Speaking of phenomenal wrestlers, Suzuki and Tam Nakano.
Amazing. I'm so proud of you.
I know. One thing I will say about Tam is that her theme music's rubbish. No.
How dare you, sir?
One thing I will say about Tam is that she will never be a selfish wrestler, because no matter who she is in the ring with, she will literally bend herself in knots to make them look good. And there was a moment in this match, and everyone knows the moment that I'm talking about, that snapmare off the top rope, where she connects with the very, very edge of the apron. And the fact that Tam is willing to do that in the semi-main of a Korakuen, she did the same in the main event of Yokohama Arena, but to do it in a Korakuen, to put over Suzuki, to put herself in this amount of danger, and she is the World of Stardom champion as well. I thought this really epitomised the way that Tam wrestles, and I love that. This was gritty, this was hard hitting, this escalated beautifully to a fantastic closing stretch. I will never get sick of seeing Suzuki do those rolling German suplexes. They just look great. I love the fact that Tam escalated a game to a really brutal level. There was one moment where she hit the violet shooting, and you talked about the acoustics in Korakuen Hall. It sounded like gunfire the way she hit Suzuki with it. Ultimately, started a little bit rough, which I quite like, because that's the way Suzu wrestles. And Tam enjoys that sort of wrestling game anyway. She's the entire crux, or one of the entire cruxes of her and Saya Kamitani's feud, was that Saya's wrestling was too pretty. She wasn't willing to get down and dirty, whereas Tam was more than willing to do whatever it takes to win. And I think that became apparent here, even though she didn't win. But ultimately, another fantastic wrestling match, 4.5 stars. Again, perhaps match of the night, maybe on par with Sourei and Mariah. Again, Suzu Suzuki, every time she's in the ring, she feels like a star. And here, she felt like a star, Matt.
I'm going to piggyback on what you said. You talked about Tam taking, that bump and other bumps. And there's one point where the two of them are brawling on the top rope, and Suzu gets the advantage to hit that half and half slam by stiffing Tam with the crazy stiff slap. I think Julia, who was her tag partner, the very next night was like, hey, you're going to want to slap Tam as hard as humanly possible. That's my strategy to go into that match. But you mentioned about Tam not being a selfish wrestler, and you're absolutely right. The reason why, especially in this match, she's taking these bumps, she's going out of her way to make Suzu look good. It's Suzu Suzuki. She can wrestle a broomstick, and it's going to be a great match. But just making sure she gets one or two up on over the current Wonder of Stardom champion is ultimately, what does this do? This puts more emphasis in the rematch that's going to be for the World of Stardom Championship. I don't see any reason why it can't be. And then what did ultimately Tam do? She sold tickets. She sold pay-per-view buys. She sold YouTube subscriptions. She sold Stardom World subscriptions. Just by going out, being unselfish, and doing your job. When that rematch happens, this match was great. I think the rematch is going to be even better. I just hope the crowd, against that Korakuen Hall is just the loudest crowd for pro wrestling in Japan. And I could be wrong. It just seems Korakuen Hall, especially for these Stardom shows, are molten hot. But if we get a version of this match with like 5 or 6 minutes added on to it, and it'll be a bigger match because it is for the richest prize in all of Stardom, the World of Stardom Championship, it's just going to be more violent, which is right up my alley because this was violent. It was stiff. The selling was great. The crowd was hot. It was back and forth. You did not know which way it was going to go, but ultimately it was the 2 locomotion German suplexes back to back that does in Tam Nakano, and I got a feeling they're going to play off that when they run this one back for the World of Stardom Championship. Rob Goodwin, I agree with you wholeheartedly. 4.5 stars. Absolutely loved it. You literally have just sold 2 championship rematches in the last, just in these Korakuen Hall 5-star matches. Brutal. Brutal. Bravo, Stardom. Bravo. Well done.
And finally, we move on to our main event, Julia versus Maika. I loved the very different way that both women attacked the opening sort of parts of this match. Julia, from the moment she entered Korakuen Hall, looked like she did not want to engage with Maika, didn't want to wrestle. Maika didn't want to hurt Maika, whereas Maika went at her all guns blazing. And by the end, she'd incited this anger that we know Julia has, this red rag nature that Julia has. Overall, you want a Maika versus Julia match. You want hard hitting. You want bombs being thrown. You want heavy moves. And that's ultimately what this was. It was also a chance for Maika to prove herself. Because as Suzu said when she came out at the end, Julia had already pinned Maika in this generational struggle sort of series, which seemed to fall by the wayside in this show. People seem to completely forget that this was supposed to be part of the generational struggle series as well. But the fact that Maika can't get the job done again, and you can see that anger and that frustration, not at Julia, but at herself, that she can't get the job done. To the point where Julia, at the end of the match, she's putting over Maika, saying, you are one of the best wrestlers in this company, and the fact that you're on my team is a massive, massive comfort to me. And I thought that was a big thing at the end, before we had a fantastic closing segment with the Artist of Stardom challenge, which I'll talk about in a moment. But overall, this is exactly what you expected. And even though you could see that Julia was wincing, because, I've bruised my coccyx, it is not pleasant. Everything hurts. And the fact that she's taking bloody superplexes and things like that with an injured, tailbone, unbelievable strength. But overall, another fantastic match. Giulia gets the win. Again, Maika not quite eliminated. She needs to win every match she's got left. Can it be done? We will see. Matt, what did you think of this match?
I thought it started out great with the grappling. Again, Giulia's grappling is one of the more underrated aspects of her offense. Obviously, Maika has that background in judo. So nice little start with the grappling. Eventually, seems like majority of these matches, it spills out to the floor. But you mentioned all these bumps that Giulia takes. She took a stalling suplex, not only onto the floor, which has no give, but on top of a pile of chairs as well. So it's like you're getting like double the bump there. I mean, Giulia really went out of her way to give Maika a great match here. And Giulia and Maika are both so good that they could have still had a really excellent match with Giulia avoiding some of these big bumps. But again, Giulia really going out of her way to put over, make her fellow DDM team member look good. Yeah, she took superplexes, those big stalling Harley Race style suplexes that Maika does pretty much better than just about anybody in all of pro wrestling. She took this crazy Kawada style power bomb as well. So it's like, yeah, sure, why not at this point? It's a really cool spot where Maika goes for the Michinoku driver and Giulia is able to roll through it and then rolls all the way into the Indian Deathlock, which we've seen Giulia win matches at last year's 5-star with. And the two of them are just kind of just sit up and start slapping each other. And almost as much as Hazuki, with the crowd getting behind Hazuki, Maika was like a half a shade below Hazuki as the most over person on this show, because they were really rallying behind Maika to maybe pull off the upset win over Giulia, who in the main event of Cork and Hall of this 5-star show. There was that one spot that the crowd really bit when Giulia had the Ganase clutch onto Maika, but then Maika's able to shift her weight and then have Giulia's shoulders down on the mat. And a lot of people bit, and Cork and Hall thought that was going to be the finish. Giulia comes back, hits a huge G-trigger, and this is the genius of Giulia. She hits this G-trigger. Instead of going right for like the next move, she takes her time because she realizes the crowd, when she cracks Maika with the G-trigger, are moltenly hot behind Maika. So she waits to get the crowd. It's called crowd psychology. She waits to get the crowd to that fever pitch instead of going to the next thing. Let it settle. Because if she picks Maika up and going for the next move, all the Maika chants are kind of die down a little. So she waits to go to the next move until they have a crowd at a certain point. Eventually, the two of them fight on the top rope, have a brutal brawl on the top rope. Giulia hits a really cool combination of the top rope butterfly suplex and is able to hang on to transition that into the Northern Lights bomb for the 3 count. I gave this is another one, 4.5 stars, Robin. I don't know how I would rate these. Like, if you asked me what was my favorite match of the show, I think you'd have a different answer between Tam and Suzu, between Giulia and Maika, and between Hazuki and Starlight Kid. And I think the fact that you had Mariah and Sourei Ano probably as your favorite just goes to show you how great the show was.
Yeah, absolutely. It really was a thoroughly enjoyable and relatively short show as well. And it's, we're going to talk about the pay-per-view in a moment. It was only just over 3 hours long, which was really quite nice and refreshing, if I'm perfectly honest. But before we get on to that, there was obviously an Artist of Stardom Championship Challenge where Maika really lets the frustration get on top of her when Suzuki comes out and basically starts baiting her about how she's lost again. They start arguing with each other, and Maika makes an impromptu challenge for the Artist belt by saying, yeah, well, I'm going to get my revenge when we go for the Artist belt. Suzuki's got no idea what she's talking about, and is like, why have I got a team with you? Because I said so. And it becomes very much like two arguing children. And they're talking over each other, then they're yelling at each other, yelling at the crowd, yelling at Giulia. Giulia's just in the background going, what is happening? At one point, she just lies down and waits for it to all pass over. Giulia says, you do realize you're going to need a third person, don't you, to challenge for the belts? And at this point, I was like, oh, this could go one of two ways, because the Korakuen crowd started chanting for Mai Sakurai. And I, by this point, knew who it was going to be, and I was like, oh, I really hope they react well to this. And they did, because the way Maika and Suzuki finally came together and said, Megan, at the same time, and everyone cheered, everyone chanted for Megan. She didn't come out, and Giulia went, you do realise she's got no idea what you're talking about. She doesn't even know this is going to happen. And Suzuki goes, yeah, it's fine, I'll explain to her later, which I thought was really funny. Overall, this entire exchange was extremely entertaining, but that means that we have, ready for that Nagoya show on the 9th of October, we have the Artist of Stardom champion Julia Suzuki, Julia, Mai Sakurai, and Tekla taking on Megan Bayne, Maika, and Suzu Suzuki. That's going to be a very, very interesting matchup. Looking at the 5-star Grand Prix. Good grief. Red block is relatively simple compared to blue block. Basically, we are now at a point where if you lose a match, you are eliminated. The only people actually eliminated are Saya Kamitani, unfortunately through injury, Starlight Kid, Ami Sourei, and Mayu Iwatani. They are the only people eliminated. Now, Tora only has one match left. She's currently on 12 points. Everybody else is still in with a shot. Natsupoi on 9 points, Sourei on 9 points, Tam on 7, Suzu Suzuki on 6, and Hazuki on 6. The 23rd of September is pivotal. Suzu Suzuki versus Hazuki. The loser is eliminated should Hazuki beat Natsupoi. Especially as Suzu Suzuki has 2 points in the bank because she was supposed to be taking on Saya Kamitani on the final night. So effectively read that Suzu Suzuki is on 8 points. Hazuki, if she beats Natsupoi, which I believe is on the 16th, which I think is in Hiroshima, Fukuoka, which is, of course, Hazuki's hometown. If she is to beat Natsupoi, then beat Suzu, she is in with a real chance of getting through to that final night and going on to the final. It's a big if. I mean, if you look at who she's got left, she's got Natsupoi on the 16th, Suzu Suzuki on the 23rd, and Natsuko Tora on the 30th. It is a big ask, but she is capable of doing it. Sourei, meanwhile, has got Tam on the 20th, Starlight Kid on the 24th, and Ami Sourei on the 30th. So Tam and Starlight Kid need to play it out of the bag there. Natsupoi has got Hazuki, Ami Sourei, and Tam left. I can see Tam beating Natsupoi on the final night to stop Natsupoi going through. Lots and lots of different permutations in red block. Blue block is all over the place because you have got Utami, who's on 8, Julia is on 9, but Utami can get a maximum of 14, Julia can only get a maximum of 13. You've then got 5 wrestlers who are all sitting with 3 wins, 3 losses, and 6 points. Mariah May, Mina, Momo, and Azumi are all sitting at 3 and 3, and all can only get a maximum of 12 points. Now, if Julia wins her next match, which, unless I'm very much mistaken, is against Mina? No.
Azumi on the 20th, right?
Yes, Azumi, you're right. So if she beats Azumi, that moves her to 12, which eliminates Azumi, eliminates Mina, I believe it eliminates Mariah May. It eliminates a whole raft of people. The same with Utami. If Utami wins, that eliminates a couple of people as well. Maika, who is currently sitting on 5 points, second to bottom of the block, 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. She can still get a maximum of 13 points, but she needs to beat everybody she's got left to be in with a shot. If she wins every match she's got left, but so does Utami, she's out. And obviously, having lost to Julia, if she wins every match and Julia wins every match, Maika's out because she's lost the tiebreak. So, as we get closer to the tournament final on the 30th of September, we are no clearer as to who is going to win the tournament, or who is even going to be in the running at the end, because it could be a lot of people, it could be 2 people. Who knows? But hopefully, at the end of our next podcast, where we've had 2 more nights from the 16th and the 17th, the 16th, as I mentioned, in Fukuoka, and the 17th in Saga City, hopefully we will have just a little bit more of an idea of who is going through to the final and who goes into that final night with a chance.
And the 18th, in case if it's up on time, too. We have shows on the 16th, 17th, and the 18th this week, buddy. So strap on in, brother.
Well, we record on the 20th. The chances of that 18th show being up before we record is very slim. The 16th and the 17th are a possibility. If by some miracle people from Stardom are listening, please try and get them up early so we can review them. But I can't see the 18th being up in time. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's talk then, because I'm a little bit wary of the time. Let's talk about this Dream Tag Festival. Sunday, the 10th of September 2023, Yokohama Budokan, in front of, as I mentioned, 1,479 people, which was the official attendance. This, considering, to me anyway, this seemed like a little bit of a throwaway show. I am so glad I was wrong, because this show was a tremendous amount of fun to watch. Yes, there were teams that were sort of thrown together. However, because of the way it's fallen, you had every single match had different dynamics, had different psychology. You had got whether Mina and Tam could coexist after everything that's happened there. You had Hina and Rina, the sisters. Can they fight against Mariah May Sakurai, who fight completely different battles and fight in completely different styles? You've got Hanan and Mariah May, who have embraced this tag team dynamic so much that they dressed as each other, and in the process were the most entertaining thing. You've got Momo Kogo and Momo Watanabe. Momo Watanabe wanting absolutely nothing to do with Momo Kogo at all, refuses to acknowledge her, tag her in, all sorts. So there's that dynamic there. You had the tag team dynamic between Nanae Takahashi and Ruaka, which was so similar. Nanae Takahashi coming out, passion, dragging out this sullen-faced Ruaka like Kirsty dragging me around a shopping centre looking at cushion covers. It was incredible. Ruaka wanting absolutely nothing to do with it, given this towel
I want that video, folks. I want that man in video.
The fact that Ruaka had to come out with this towel that said Nanae Takahashi on it, and she just sort of held it in her arm like, I hate my life. Brilliant. Then you just had this brutal slugfest between Julia, Suzu Suzuki, Maika, and Utami. Of course, you've just had Julia beat Maika in the 5-star. You've got all the history between Julia and Suzu Suzuki. Can they coexist? Can they fight together? And then, of course, you've got the future of Stardom in Azumi and Starlight Kid, and Mai Iwatani and Saki Kashima, who have done everything together, have won the tag gold together, have turned on each other in the case of Saki Kashima, and still do not trust each other and will not work together. It made for, yes, there was only 6 matches on the main card, but they were 6 incredibly different matches, an incredibly cool dynamic in all of these matches. I'll just read through the results and then we'll sort of go through. But we started with our pre-show gauntlet tag. This aired for free on YouTube, with the team of Megan Bayne and Mai Sakurai defeating Sourei and Sourei, Lady C and Miyu Amasaki, Koguma and Saya Ida, and Waka Tsukiyama and Yuna Mizumori in 13 minutes and 10 seconds, with them last eliminating the Queen's Quest team of Lady C and Miyu Amasaki. On the main card, we then had the reunited Dream H team, Tam Nakano and Mina Shirakawa, defeating the tag champs Natsupoi and Sourei Ano. I will continue to get it right. Tam Nakano pinning Natsupoi with the Andromeda in 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Mai Sakurai and Mirai then defeated Hina and Rina in 11 minutes and 50 seconds, with Mirai pinning Hina with the submitting Hina with the Mirror Mare in 11 minutes and 50 seconds. Hanan and Mariah May then defeated double Momo Kogo and Momo Watanabe by disqualification, when Momo Watanabe decided she'd had more than enough of teaming with Momo Kogo and just went nuts with a baseball bat. Hazuki and Natsuko Tora teaming together for the first time in what must be 5 years. No, it's not. It's 4 years since 2019, the Ueda Tai days. Defeated Nanae Takahashi and Ruaka, with Hazuki pinning Ruaka after a diving senton in 14 minutes and 56 seconds. It's Stardom, so we've got to have one of them. Julia and Suzu Suzuki versus Maika and Jutami Hayashishita went to a 20-minute time limit draw. And then in our main event, we had the tag team match, Azumi and Starlight Kid defeating Mayu Iwatani and Saki Kashima. Azumi rolling through and pinning Saki with the Azumi Sushi in 15 minutes and 24 seconds. Before I throw to Matt for his opinion on some of these matches, it's worth noting that we also had quite a few announcements through this show. KAIRI turned up as they announced that she would, and she basically said that she has got one more Stardom match in her, and she put the challenge out to the locker room. 3 people came out. Hazuki, Saya Iida, and Koguma basically came out and said, we will challenge you. So KAIRI needed partners. Nanae Takahashi came out, reuniting 7 KAIRI, and then Mayu Iwatani was asked to join them. So KAIRI's final match in Stardom has been made official for Nagoya, which we'll go through the card in a moment. And it's going to be KAIRI, Nanae Takahashi, and Mayu Iwatani versus Hazuki, Saya Iida, and Koguma. And then after Julia and Suzu Suzuki's match, Prominence, who we've already mentioned as entering the tag league, Risa Sera and Kurumi Hiragi, they are going to be entering the tag league, having attacked not only Julia, but Suzu Suzuki after the match. And Maika actually had to make the save post-match, lariating Kurumi properly hard in the back of the head. But overall, Matt, this was I think the total runtime of the entire show was something like 3 hours and 6 minutes. And this was a tremendous amount of fun. There is not one match on here that I would say, yeah, skip that. You don't need to watch that. Every single match brought its own little identity to the show, and it was so much fun because of it.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I'm just going to hit the rewind button just 2 seconds here. As far as 5-star picks goes, myself and Amber are both tied at 29. So, oh boy, it's heating up everywhere, sir. It's heating up everywhere. I kind of just want to start with the big KAIRI announcement. A lot of people, when she did, I think it was about a day or two before the show, Rob, they mentioned KAIRI was going to be on the show for some sort of announcement. I think a lot of people thought we were going to get that dream match of KAIRI and Julia. Obviously, we didn't. It's a little bit disappointing. Again, but this is going to be a fantastic match. I'm super excited for it. Would I have rathered a singles match with KAIRI versus Hazuki, which it looked like that's what we were going to get, or KAIRI versus Julia? Sure. But at the same time, you want to reunite the 7 KAIRI. You want to reunite 2/3 of the freedom of the, 2 of the 3 daughters, and you're getting all that in one match. And you're still going to get Hazuki over. You're going to get Koguma over. And you're going to get Saya Iida over as well. The fact that Saya Iida, who we're massive fans of on the show, is going to get KAIRI's final match in Stardom for now. Who knows? She may be back in a year or two. That's a really, really big rub for her. So I thought when I was watching this, when they first called somebody out, the fact that Hazuki was so far up front from Koguma and Saya Iida that I thought it was just going to be a singles match until they mentioned that, we're going to do a 6-person match. I'm like, well, who is the 2 partners going to be? I'm like, obviously it's got to be Nanae and it's got to be Mayu. I thought that was pretty clear, and that's what we got. I am super excited for this match. I'm excited to see where it's going to go, considering the fact that it looked like on paper that it would be KAIRI pinning Saya Iida for this match. But at the same time, KAIRI's leaving to go back to WWE, allegedly. So usually they do the right thing on putting somebody over. I would not be shocked if Hazuki hits the brainbuster and pins KAIRI to send KAIRI back over to the States and to get more of a rub on Hazuki. I don't know how the match is going to go. I think it's going to be great. I also think it's worth mentioning that when Nanae got in the ring and she grabbed the microphone and started yelling that KAIRI sold it, like, oh my God, you're so loud, in typical Nanae fashion. And in typical Mayu fashion, they're calling Mayu out, and she's like half getting changed and comes out from some random entranceway and almost trips over herself. I thought that was great.
She's brilliant. She really is. The fact that she was still getting changed on her way out as well really epitomised Mayu Iwatani. But Matt, these matches, what did you think? What were your ratings? What should people go out of their way to check out?
I know I know we're about 10 minutes, my man, so I'll try to run through this. I thought the fact when the matches came up and we were getting Dream H versus the tag champs to start, I thought it was brilliant, a really good way to get the crowd, hot for this show. I thought that it was great that Tam and Natsupoi couldn't help themselves, even though they're on opposite teams, but to do the opening melt tier spot on the Mina Shirakawa, I thought that was great. I thoroughly enjoyed this match. This was probably my third favorite match of the show. I had it at 4 stars, and I liked it how we all did the Cosmic Angels dance at the end, and then Mina was like staring at Tam's belt, which then may give the door opening and hinting to a little that maybe it is a possibility that Mina Shirakawa walks away as the winner of the 5-star Grand Prix to challenge Tam Nakano for the red belt. So that is a good possibility. Another wrench into where he started him going at the end of this 5-star. I thought this made it so much better. So I thought that was good. I thought Mariah May Sakurai, they worked really well together, so well that they're tagging in the tag league. I thought it was a solid match against the twins. I had it 3 3/4 stars. Also, I enjoyed it. I'm sure you probably enjoyed it more than anybody. That Mai Sakurai cut her after match promo on Rina when Rina was locked in the Paradise Lock. I thought that was good.
Not only did she sit on her whilst Mariah submitted Hina with the mirror, she
her twin sister,
but then sat on her for ages cutting this promo. Honestly, it seems like ages since we've seen Mai Sakurai. I don't know if she's been injured, but she hasn't been on the cards for a long time. This felt like the first time we'd seen her in ages. And I actually forgot she was an Artist of Stardom champion. That's how long I haven't seen her in. But she's another one who has improved tenfold and actually was one of my favorite parts of this entire show. Not during this match, which we'll get to in a little bit. Please continue.
So we go to match number 3. Again, Hanan and Mariah May just completely turning the show on its heels, doing something different. You have to think outside the box in order to stand out. And that's what Hanan and Mariah May did. They switch outfits. I was like, I didn't know if that was going to fit because Mariah May is so much taller than Hanan, but it did. And even Hanan broke out of her shell a little bit, basically embraced her sexy side, for lack of a better term, and was doing a lot of the Mariah May stuff, which Mariah May sold like, oh, Han, I didn't know that you were going to do that. Momo Kogo, who's fantastic, she comes in, she looks great, she has a good opening scene, and the fact that Momo Watanabe put up with all of this BS for about 45 seconds. I don't like DQs in matches, especially for like pay-per-views, but this was perfect to the point. Again, you have Hana and Mariah May just, chucking it up, yucking it up, and they were fantastic together, not only in the entrance and they switched outfits, but in the ring, and Momo Kogo is doing the best she can. But it gets to the point Momo Watanabe, who's the senior in this match, right? Former finalist of the 5-star, former Wonder Stardom champion. It gets to the point where she's like, I'm having none of this, and just beats everybody with a baseball bat. The DQ made perfect sense. Like when you just see Momo Watanabe just getting so pissed off and so frustrated, I'm like, if this ends in a DQ with Momo just beating up everybody up with a baseball bat, this is going to be one of the best DQ finishes I've seen in a long time. So I thought it was great. 3.5 stars. But yeah, Hana and Mariah May really yucking it up. The return of a Oedo Tai. Hazuki, basically a nod to her Oedo Tai gear, half black, half white, kind of looked like. I saw some pictures back and forth with her and Kagetsu. So maybe a little nod to her former leader of Oedo Tai with Kagetsu. But Tora and Hazuki were brilliant in this match together, very violent. Obviously, Ruaka brings it. Nene Takahashi brings it as well. I thought this match was really good. I like the double mist, the fact that they did double Tora and double Hazuki mist that led to the finish. Really, really solid match. Hazuki and Tora, if they do this again, I would love to see them team up again. Even though they worked well together, Rob, as a tag team, I wouldn't like to see them as a permanent tag team. I think Tora is the best pure heel in Stardom, and Hazuki so over of a baby face, hence the Cork and Hall show, that I wouldn't like to see Hazuki turn back to a Oedo Tai because she's just so over as a fiery baby face. 3 3/4 stars. Match number 5, my favorite match of the show. Utami and Maika versus Julia and Suzuki. You knew it was on when Julia's coming to the ring with the table and Suzu's coming in with a chair. And it was not to eat Thanksgiving dinner, my friend. It was to use for certain violent points. I was critical on one point in this match, but the fine folks of Twitter world, X world, they were able to tell me that I was wrong, to the point where they Micah and Utami have the advantage on Julia and Suzu Suzuki, and Utami basically waterboards Suzu Suzuki with a rose gold tequila. Now I don't know how it is over there in England, Rob, but over here in the States you have to be 21 to drink. So I was like, I wonder if this is a felony that she's getting a minor. Suzu Suzuki's only 20 years old, getting a minor to drink, but I was corrected that you only have to be 20 to have a legal drink in Japan. So it was A-okay. Nobody was arrested, and the 5-star is saved. Because if Utami would have gone to jail and maybe missed the rest of the 5-star because she's corrupting the youth of America. So she didn't corrupt the youth of America, but she did corrupt the bodies of Julia and Suzu Suzuki. Yeah, because this was absolutely brutal in the best ways possible, violent in every which way. And then we saw stereo pile drivers through the tables. Really good closing sequence with everybody hitting their big moves. Utami hitting the torture rack bomb. We saw Micah hitting the Michinoku driver, Tequila Sunrise, Julia hitting the Glorious driver, and then them basically the four of them running the tanks out on empty, hitting the suplexes back and forth, the German suplexes. Eventually goes to the time limit draw, as I knew it should, and it would, 4 1/4 stars. And then this main event, Starlight Kid and Azumi, the eternal foes. If this was your first time watching Stardom, you would think they weren't eternal foes, but they were eternal tag team partners, because these two look like they were just having the most fun of all time. They had matching masks outside of the fur around the Starlight Kid style mask. They even did like a crazy high-speed entrance where I was like, there's nobody else in the ring. Are they going to arm drag each other, do a high-speed spot against each other like they can't help themselves? I loved Mayu and Saki Kashima, how it's like, okay, we're going to start the match. We're going to start out fast. And everybody runs at each other, considering the fact that everybody at one point in time have held the high-speed championship, and that Saki Kashima is the current high-speed champion. So they go to run at each other, and then next thing you know, Saki Kashima's in the second row watching Mayu get her ass kicked. So I thought that was, Mayu just can't trust her. Just can't trust her. But really good action back and forth between the two teams. There's one awesome spot. There's more than one awesome spot in this match, but the timing of this spot just blows my mind how they're able to time this right. Azumi's biggest high impact move, her big high spot, is when she does that running jump from corner to corner and then just leaps over the post on her opponent. And then Starlight Kid, in my opinion, her big, high spot move is that Asai moonsault that she does also perfectly to the outside. The fact that they hit them at the same time on the same side of the ring so flawlessly, it was like they had to be practicing that for months. They had to be jonesing at like, hey, Hat Man, look what we can do. Put us in a tag match together. We wrestled each other 1,000 times. I thought it was brilliant. I thought Mayu, her comeback just with the stiff super kicks and dropping everybody on her head were great. I thought the breaking up of the falls were terrific. I thought Saki and Azumi going back and forth, trading the Kishikasais into the Azumi Sushis was great, but ultimately it was Azumi with the double Azumi Sushi for the 3 count. I had it at 4 1/4 stars. Ultimately, my friend, the fact that we're in the middle of this 5-star, we have fantastic champions all over the board for Stardom, and there was not one title match, not one 5-star match, and this was more than worth my money. And I'm so glad they drew almost 1,500 people in this, and the show got nothing but rave reviews. I hope they do a show like this every year.
100%. It was something different. Every wrestler embraced it. We had stories going into it, maybe not major title going storylines, but we had, it felt like you were rewarded for being a long-term fan, or fans that had watched, so you were able to see that Mina Shirakawa is not going to be friends with Tam Nakano just because they're teaming together, or the fact that Momo Watanabe is going to be absolutely fine teaming with Momo Kogo. There's all these little things that sort of just fit really, really well together. It felt like every single wrestler threw themselves into it. I thoroughly enjoyed this show. I'd actively encourage anyone to just go and watch it. Go and watch every match. It's incredibly fun. And none of them go ridiculously long. Obviously, the 20-minute time limit draw, but nothing else touches 18 minutes. So go and check it out. It's definitely worth your time. That one moment, I will just end on this. That one moment in Julia and Suzu Suzuki versus Micah and Utami, and I'd love to go through every match spot for spot, but there's one moment where they're both being pile driven through tables, and one table collapses, and then the other table, Julia goes through it. And Mai Sakurai Go and watch this spot and just watch Mai Sakurai's reaction. It is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life. Please, I implore you, if you've already watched this show, just go back to the table spot. Don't watch the tables. Don't watch Julia. Watch Mai Sakurai. It's my moment of the show. It is brilliant. What a way to sell the brutality of it. Let's move on then to the card for Nagoya Golden 5. That's been announced. I'm just going to whip through that really, really quickly. This is obviously going to happen on the 9th of October, one full week after the 5-star Grand Prix finals. The card is as follows. UWF rules Sourei versus Mina Shirakawa. We have got the special KAIRI retirement in inverted commas match. KAIRI Mayu and Nanae Takahashi versus Hazuki Koguma and Saya Ida. High Speed Championship match. Saki Kashima versus Mai Sakurai. The Artist of Stardom belts are on the line, as we mentioned earlier. Julia, Mai Sakurai, and Tekla taking on Maika, Suzu Suzuki, and Megan Bain. The Goddesses of Stardom championships as well. Saori Ano, come on, Rob, and Natsupoi, the champions taking on Utami and Azumi. Wonder of Stardom Championship on the line. Obviously, we talked a little bit about Momo Watanabe. She did make a challenge to Mirai for the Wonder of Stardom Championship, having beaten her earlier in the 5-star. She's cashing in that opportunity here in the semi-main. And then the main event, the World of Stardom Championship. Tam Nakano, the champion, defending against Nat Sukatora. Matt, very, very quickly before we sign off, do you see any titles changing hands?
No. Awesome card. We know we got to get you out of here in about 2 minutes, partners. So, no, awesome card. We'll have a full preview in the upcoming weeks.
It is worth noting as well, something I didn't mention during the news is that Momo Kogo, Lady C, and Miyu Amasaki will be absent from some of the upcoming shows due to varying injuries and niggles. I don't know about you, but I saw Miyu Amasaki at the Korakuen Hall show basically held together just by tape, and then Mai Sakurai is also going to be absent from some shows, so I'm wondering if she wasn't fully fit, ready for that Dream Tag show. So those are going to be missing from the upcoming cards. Both of us, hope nothing but the best for them and hope for a speedy recovery for them. Just before we sign off, Saturday, September 16th, Fukuoka, the next night of the 5-star Grand Prix, will see Maika versus Azumi, Hazuki versus Natsupoi, and Tam versus Ami Sourei. And then the following day on the 17th, you have got Suzu Suzuki versus Ami Sourei, Mirai versus Mariah May, and then Hanan versus Momo Watanabe. Don't forget, it is basically a case now of if you lose, you are out. Just so that you are aware, final thing from me, I'm going to put a little taster of our alternate commentary on Twitter this week, so you can watch 2 minutes of us doing some alternate commentary for Mina and Tam, just in case you want to see what we're like and how we do things over on Patreon. And it might, in case you want to come and watch us on a weekly basis. And more interviews are coming to the Stardom Cast. Can't wait to share with you what Matt in particular has got planned. But I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that has listened to this podcast, whether you're listening today or whether you're a long-time listener. Thank you. Your support literally means everything to us. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you can leave us a 5-star review and a comment on the podcast app of your choice. I did go through some of the ones that we've got, especially in America. Oh my God, there's loads. I did not expect there to be that many. So thank you to everyone that has already. Can't tell you how much that really helps us out and gets us exposed to more people. You can find us on social media at The Stardom Cast. Thank you to all our patrons over at patreon.com/The Stardom Cast. Check out our YouTube channel, The Stardom Cast. And if you want to talk to me on Twitter, you can find me at Real Rob Goodwin. Matt Turner, sign us off, good sir.
Absolutely, folks. We will do double Io Shirai watch next week. Again, we need to get Mr. Rob Goodwin out of here so he can get to his football/soccer match on time. So we'll double up on the Io next week. If you want to get a hold of me on the Twitter, the Instagram, the X, Matt Turner OF is the best way to get a hold of me. You want to shoot me an email, perfectly fine as well. The StardomCast22@gmail.com is the best way to get a hold of me via email. Folks, don't forget to buy poi. Like I always say, folks, it's just not my podcast. It's our podcast because we're all this together and everybody's different. Everybody's special.